Because I can name things on this device. This is the Zoom Live Track L8 that I'm using. And I can name things, but I'm only able to use a single knob to go through all the letters, and then I have to select the letter and the next letter. Yeah, exactly.
So 2117.
It's 211725, because otherwise I name it, podcast EP2 or something like that, or just like even EP2 or, something that I can figure it out. But I like writing hand notes anyway, so.
The same way.
Yeah.
Just hits different.
It does. It really does. There's nothing like being able to cross it off. But yeah, welcome to episode 2 of The Tea with Mikey. We are at, what would we call it? Yeah, what is it?
I mean, technically it's Hangar 5.
We're at Hangar 5.
Hangar 5 in the Scottsdale Air Park.
There we go.
Yeah.
We're at Hangar 5 in the Scottsdale Air Park with Moriah Grace.
I like the way you say my name. You have a great voice.
Thank you.
You should do podcasts.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Let's do one right now.
That's a good idea. There we go. Here we are. Cool. Yeah. And we're sipping on, it is called The Tea with Mikey, so we're sipping on some sweet clementine stress support. It's got adaptogens to support overall health, and some puka detox. That's kind of a funny name for the tea.
I needed both.
Yeah. I feel like I've been in a phase of detox as I'm kind of like settling into this new house, and it's like all just letting go of the old stuff. And it's like do you ever encounter phases where you're like, I really want to let this thing go, but I'm not quite in the opportunity to do so? Yeah, detoxing. Yeah, detoxing physically, spiritually. I feel like sometimes it's like, I want to let this thing go, let this person go, this idea, etc. There's so many different things that you can let go. And it's just like, the opportunity hasn't arisen yet. Or it's like, every once in a while you get the go ahead and it's like, okay, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. I feel like my year last year was me detoxing. Mm-hmm. Detoxing mainly people in my life, but then the patterns that were attached to those people and kind of just sitting with myself. I literally sat in my backyard and listened to music and cried when I needed to cry and laughed when I needed to laugh, smoked a bunch of spliffs.
One spliff a day keeps the evil away.
It's true. That tobacco is grounding. Yeah. And the weed kind of gives you the creative juices, which really helped me.
Have you ever tried smoking with intention?
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazing.
It's the best.
Yeah. It's like a spliff with a specific attention. It's like,
truly, that is what helped unlock so many things last year. Yeah. That and breath work, on breath work.
I still need to get on that breath work train.
Come with me. You gotta come. I know a guy.
I know. I got my breath work guy.
I got my breath work guy.
Like, hey, you trying to buy some breath work?
You trying to buy some breath work?
Yeah. That's so interesting. I relate to the whole releasing of people in the toxic cycles. I feel, it's like, sometimes it's like, oh shit, I've let that person be in my life that long. I've let that person have that much effect on me and how I do things. And it's like, wow.
It's wild, especially when I was a people pleaser in a lot of ways. And how once you finally let go of that thing or person that has been kind of controlling your emotions and you trying to help them over yourself, I guess, it's incredible what comes flowing in.
That's true.
To fill that space that was like, you don't realize how much space it took up until you start seeing what starts coming at you and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like 50 beautiful, wonderful experiences and people that just flew in after I dropped this one thing.
Because like one thing that can seem very small or insignificant it can actually take up a ton of space in your brain or just energetically. That's the vocabulary I usually use sometimes. Is like, oh, this specific thing is taking up a lot of brain space.
I love that. Yes, that's exactly
like
what
real
it's
estate
doing.
in your mind, and it's like once it's available, then again, all that stuff flows back in, you know?
And it's always like so much more beautiful than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And it's like just having the trust and the surrender to let it go and be grateful for everything that came with it. Because you were saying it's like you have these moments where you're like, is it time to let go yet? Is it time to let go yet? And you're like trying and trying. And then finally there's a moment of this release. And it's like, okay, that lesson was finally learned. That thing finally hit. So a lot of people, like, they try and force themselves out of relationships that they know are not cohesive for them and good, but something's keeping them still.
Yeah.
And then finally it hits. So it's like no matter how many times you try and tell somebody like this person's not good for you or this situation is really unhealthy, until it fully clicks in your body, it's not going to move through you the way it needs to. So I feel like everything and everyone kind of stays there as long as they're supposed to, based on what you're needing to learn.
Yeah.
And it can be really annoying and frustrating when you look back and you're like, that was like years of my life or months of my life. What have I done? But it's like, no, there's so much beauty within all of that, and then giving yourself grace through it.
That's true. Yeah, it's like one of the things I think about is also like be grateful that it only took that long to learn that lesson.
Be grateful you learned it.
Yeah, exactly. Because
we made it through.
some people go through their entire lives. That's one of my theories as to why some people stay on this planet for so long and live in a miserable long life, because there's still so many lessons for them to learn, but they haven't learned it. You know, and that's not to say that you can also live a happy long life too, you know?
Yeah, it's the surrender and the gratitude that I've come to realize is the key to a lot of it.
That's true.
How long do you want to suffer?
Yeah.
And when is that suffering okay enough? You're like, all right, I'm good. It's almost like being tortured, like in wartime, but spiritually or emotionally, until you're finally like, okay, I'll break. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's the fact that we're here, we made it out.
Yeah.
Our processing or an awareness, like, gives us hope. We're aware. We're not done yet, but we're aware.
Every once in a while, I have dreams that are just like an entire journey, where it's like, well, you talking about it and having made it through kind of reminded me of that. It's like, yeah, wow, like.
Wait, I want to hear about your dreams.
I wrote like an entire like 2 sides of like a piece of binder paper. I have like a bunch of scratch paper. Every once in a while I want to write something down, and I was basically on the run, and it was like through realms, you know, like I guess it was technically like through this country, through America, but it didn't. You know how like in a dream...
Oh, yeah. It's like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like your brain tells you that that's where it is, but then you look at the actual imagery and stuff, and those things don't necessarily align. It's like, okay, what... Like decoding the dream.
Yeah, what does
I
this
still have a lot of
mean?
decoding to do, but one of the things is I encountered a beach full of adult-sized babies.
Oh.
And yeah, they were all hanging out at the beach. There was like a weird overhang. That's a weird recurring element of my dreams too, is like an overhang of like a beach. Like there's like a beach, but there are buildings around it, which I haven't seen it in like real life, but I guess that must be something that my brain is, or
That's so interesting.
You know, a message that's trying to be delivered. But nonetheless,
water's cleansing and it flows, so that's a good thing. Cities kind of maybe feel like enclosed a little bit, but you still have the beach, and then there's a ton of adult babies living right now.
Yeah, and instead of like baby bottles they were drinking alcohol.
Oh wow. That's kind of deep, actually. You could really dive into
it's
that.
Like who
if you
wrote that one?
to.
That was a good. That was a
That's
cool
a good
metaphor.
one.
Yeah,
That's profound.
It's like, it's like every once in a while there's some profound dream imagery. Let's see.
Like, do you paint that, draw that?
Yeah. Drawing is one of those things I want to get into a little bit more. But yeah, it's I do like graphic design. That's like my visual art. I like sketching and doodling, but painting has been a bit of a challenge. I do like drawing.
No, painting for some reason, for me, it's kind of the same way. I do love to paint, but give me a Sharpie and I'll go to town.
Yeah, doodling is so much more. I talked about my partner about that a lot. Doodling is just so much less. There's so much less stakes in a doodle.
Right? It can turn into anything.
Exactly. And you can just do a ton of doodles, and then all of a sudden you have a page full of doodles rather than sometimes if you're like doing a piece of art.
Specific thing.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, it didn't turn out the way I wanted to. Oh.
This tea is saving me right now.
That's good. I got more too. Yeah, it was
beautiful.
It was that mix. I did also put a little bit of agave nectar in it as well.
I was gonna say it's kind of sweet. I like it.
I like a little bit of sweetness, but not like too much.
It's a good balance. It's a perfect balance.
That's the goal. Living everything in balance.
It really is the counterbalance of life.
Yeah, I'm trying to walk that line. Not easy at all. But
no, it's like you learn. It's like I've realized when you become aware of maybe something or a pattern that you're not too fond of yourself, you kind of tend to like go so far the other way.
Yeah.
And then that's like a whole issue within itself. But then you finally, the art is like flowing back into that
That's true.
center point. So you kind of have to go all the way both ways to get back to the balance.
That's true.
It's kind of like
a pendulum.
It is. It's a pendulum. I think it's exactly what it is.
It obeys physics.
Yeah.
That's why I like karma. I like the idea of karma a lot, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So it's like, of course, that also works like energetically.
Of course it does. If we could only see everything that's going on, maybe people would tap into it a little easier. But
I feel like dogs and cats can see it, or something. Like animals can see it. Why do they stare at the corner all the time?
Right? They know. They see it. They're like, here it comes.
Yeah, that's funny. I've gotten. Sometimes it happens when I'm high, so that is also that's my disclaimer. Big asterisk in front. But every once in a while, I see like a figure or something like in the corner of my eye, and then it's not always like a scary thing. And sometimes even if it's a scary thing, I'll go like look over and like nod at it. It's like, hey, I see you. I see you. It's like.
We both here.
Mm-hmm. That's what I try to do anytime I see something like that, and I'm just like, hey, as long as you like are here in your vibe, we're fine.
As long as you vibe.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you contribute to the vibe of this space, as long as you don't detract from it, by all means.
By all means, chill.
Let's coexist. I'd rather coexist rather than have to kick someone out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's interesting. That's like ever since I was a kid, I was like that too. I would see things out of the corner of my eye. I wouldn't get freaked out ever. I never felt the fear in my body. It was just like, cool, just be cool. I'll be cool if you be cool. Stay in your corner. Thank you.
There was nothing objectively scary. I feel like the house I grew up in wasn't necessarily spooky. Yeah. But like the vibe was off. Yeah. So it was just like...
It needed to be saged and prayed over.
It really does.
Were you guys the first ones in it, or did you have people in it before?
No, it was a house from the 60s.
Oh.
There was a family in there that lived there before we moved in. And then, it hasn't been saged for another 20 years after that,
All right. So there's some stagnant energy in there.
Stagnant energy. I mean, that's why I had to leave, because it was just like ultimate stagnant energy.
Oh, yeah. You like walk into the house and you can feel it.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's one of those things when you're in an environment that's, I wouldn't necessarily say it was overtly toxic, but it was unhealthy for me. But the whole, the vibe.
The vibe was off, man.
Yeah. It's like, if you grow up in it, you're like used to it, but then you experience new things and you experience, healthy relationships and nice and good vibes. Yeah.
And you feel the lightness somewhere else, and then you go back and you're like, there's that heaviness. It's like, you're like, I got to get out of here. Yeah. Feels like there's a weight on my chest.
And to an extent, I felt that by the like well before I, had to leave for college.
Yeah.
But it was like, well, I had to leave for college. I wouldn't have been on this journey otherwise.
I'm very happy you went to college then.
Yeah, I'm happy I went to college. Can't imagine. I can't believe I just said that sentence.
Are you using anything that you went to college for?
Not really.
Besides me, you just met.
Yeah.
Like it just got you. It was like stepping stones.
Yeah,
which is super important.
that is important. Like I think the most important thing for going to university was getting out of the house I grew up in, and then learning how to network, and meet people, and yeah, I might. I'll have to be careful because the recording is on, but yeah, there's not a ton, I'd say, of information I extracted from school that is that important. Like I now, recognize the importance of knowing music theory, solely so I can communicate my music to other people,
That's very important.
Yeah. It's a whole different vibe than like using the music theory to write. A lot of people do that, and it's like, I get that. I get it provides. It's like the bumpers in bowling, where it's like, okay, I'm in this like chord or whatever, and where can I go from here, rather than, I don't know. I guess my songwriting method is just like I write a chord progression and then the words come. I don't know. Like that kind of thing. It's, yeah.
I mean, it's like, even if you went to college, how long did you go to college for?
I went for like 3.5 years, but
all right, so it's solid amount of time.
It was for 3.5 years, but it was for 3 different majors.
Oh wow!
So
what majors?
I was bouncing around. I started GIT, which is basically graphic design.
Okay. Which you said you enjoy doing.
I do. I was lured in thinking it would be like video game design.
Okay.
Because
I was lured in.
Right. Yeah, because I wanted to go into video game design, and I was going to get, I got a scholarship at ASU. So it was kind of a no-brainer, because it was either scholarship at ASU or, pay a Tesla a year for NYU.
Yeah. All right.
And
to get you kind of the same place, I guess? Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, I was saying the tattoo that I have on my wrist is the exact moon on your shirt.
I'm wearing my Mikey Flores shirt right now. Well, there's, yeah.
No, I'm like, I want to hear about it too, but I was driving a friend to the airport this morning, and she came over to my house for the first time, and I have butterflies all over my fridge. I have moths hanging up on my wall. I have a moth sticker that my friend Leah actually designed in my car. She's like, what's up with all the butterflies and moths? I'm like, honestly, they're cool, okay? They just come to me. Like all those butterflies, I venue manage, and one of the old venue managers left like a bucket of magnet butterflies there. And I'm like, I'm going to take these. Then I get gifted butterflies and moth stuff all the time. But I'm like, moths are drawn to light in the darkness. And I always thought that was like a super beautiful thing. So the fact that you have a moth on your shirt, and she was just talking today, she's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. They just show up. And then you have like the moth with my tattoo in the center of it. That's is funny. Pretty cool.
Yeah, this was designed by my friend Molly. Yeah, she drew a moth. I was like,
good job, Molly.
Yeah, great job, Molly. Yeah, shout out. But yeah, it's moths and butterflies are so symbolic. Any insect that goes through like metamorphosis.
Oh, it's stunning.
I always love it's like a caterpillar turns into goop, and then becomes the butterfly, and it's like it's probably not fun to be goop.
No, it's not fun. It's probably kind of scary. You're like, am I gonna be able to at least crawl again? And then what happens is you get to freaking fly.
That's true. Yeah.
That's how it is with letting go of things. You don't know what's going to happen. You surrender to the goop.
surrender to the goop.
And then you grow wings after, and it's way better than it was before because you're not crawling on your stomach anymore.
That's the name of the episode, Surrender to the Goop.
Surrender to the goop. I love it. Nothing to do with Gwyneth Paltrow.
I'm writing it down.
Most profound thing I've said all day.
Well, I love the stuff that's like simultaneously silly and profound.
Oh, right? It just hits. I say that so much, but it's a good word. It just hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's one of my favorite shows of all time is Xavier Renegade Angel. It's one of those like late like 1 a.m. shows on Adult Swim that played in like 2007, 2008, like that era. And it's just...
Those feel a type of way.
Yeah, it's like...
Those are dream-like for sure.
You can watch it and feel like you're on drugs without being on any drugs.
Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh, yeah, I love Courage
That was a good one.
Yeah. I was a little scaredy cat. Well,
actually...
that
one's freaky.
Yeah.
That one felt weird to watch.
I guess that's a good... here's a tangent we can kind of go on. I think about... Courage the Cowardly Dog. Courage requires fear.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't...
It does.
You can be brave and scared.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're right. That's what makes it courageous, is that it is scary. If it wasn't, then you couldn't have courage without it. Mm-hmm. Ooh. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think about that a lot because I grew up in a fear-based household, you know, and I've been like working really hard on breaking those cycles, and it's not easy. I mean, that's why I was kind of upset on the drive here, and I mean, I know that's not the precedent I kind of want to like be setting, but
no, it's a human.
Exactly,
it's a human that you gotta be in your human to move through things.
That's a great one too. You got to be in your human, because I don't know if we've talked about that specifically. I think I talked about it on the last episode too, but I feel like what the brain does is just like the receiver of like the consciousness. Yeah, so it's like an antenna for you.
Yeah,
and you're in your human.
Yes, you're in your human.
Yeah, that's why I think why you can every once in a while talk to animals and plants and stuff. You like have a thought pop into your brain. It's like, where did that come from? And it's like, you know, everything is alive. That's kind of where I'm at this point.
Everything is absolutely alive. Everything carries energy. Everything carries transmissions.
Yeah.
I have friends lately that I've been super in tune with, and they'll like text me or call me or send me something, and I'm like, I just had a whole conversation about this. How did you hear me? And it's like a subconscious like wavelength, I guess, because there's something going on there. It's pretty wild. But you're talking about patterns and breaking patterns and the car ride over here. You don't have to go in depth about anything, but...
Yeah, just think about, I guess, what was frustrating, because that's not my car that I drove. You know, that's like my parents' car.
Okay.
And I don't desire, because growing up, there was this... Are you familiar with codependence?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that
buddy, I do.
It was very codependent.
Okay.
And I don't like that. I don't work that way.
No.
You know, I'm fine with depending on others. You know, I had to go through that phase of like hyper independence. Like I have to do everything.
Yeah,
by
it's
myself,
again that pendulum swing.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of. No, that's not what this shirt was born of. But this was born after the phase, because that's when I started working with people again. You know, this shirt is actually born of when I started working with people again. And yeah, it is. But it is. It's just hard because I mean that there is a symbol of codependence, you know, and like driving that thing, and it's.
But it got you here.
It did get me here.
It got you here.
That's true.
So it's okay. Things are uncomfortable, and it's okay for things to be uncomfortable.
That's a great point.
Especially if there's something positive that's coming from that uncomfortability for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've had my fair share of transitions, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And you're like in the midst of breaking generational trauma, which is kind of like huge. While also, I'm assuming, loving your parents at the same time and them loving you. You don't have to like them.
That's true.
But
that's actually a great point.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is a difference between liking someone and loving someone. And yeah, because There was a movie, Lady Bird. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Oh, that's really good.
It's so good because I think there was a line in it that actually kind of influenced my thinking, where it's like, I know you love me, but it seems like you don't like me, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That movie really reminded me of like my childhood.
Really? See, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but I remember it being beautiful.
It was very beautiful.
I was probably kind of stoned when I watched it.
I feel like it helps immerse into the movie.
It does. I feel it in my body, but like I don't remember it in my brain. Like I see the images, but
that's true. Yeah. Yeah, it happens. I love coming of age movies. You know.
Right, they feel good to watch. I think that says something about who we are as well, and where we came from, and what we're trying to accomplish in this life, and the awareness that we brought into this life. So that past one, we're probably like, oh fuck, this one we're like, okay, we figured it out. We're not doing this again.
Yeah.
This was just like, it was like your home life was the reminder of all of that you learned before, and now you're figuring it out and moving through it.
That's true.
And growing.
Yeah, I like to think about that a lot of the time, like in terms of ancestors and stuff. I try to get in contact with my ancestors every once in a while. I'm on decent terms with my ancestors. You know,
okay, good.
I haven't talked to them in a minute. I just haven't had the time to sit down. I like to smoke cigars with them.
I love that.
You know, I don't know how it every once in a while, like just like information will pop in.
And
it's
that's
like,
those downloads.
Someone smokes cigars, you know.
Someone smokes cigars. There's something very spiritual about tobacco.
When you use it right.
Yes, when you use it right, when you use it with intention, when you're going in. Like there's something about that smoke, because I mean it keeps rising and rising and rising and dispersing. So like that almost symbolizes a connection with the spirit realm, because it like dissipates and it almost looks like a spirit too.
That's true. Oh, that reminds me too, is like this new house, instead of like dark figures, I get little wisps. There's like wisps that kind of look like smoke every once in a while. It very well could be like a reflection in the corner of my eye, but why it doesn't make it. You know?
See, that's the thing, when something's like, I've been really trying to lean into those immediate thoughts that I have, because there's usually not much behind it besides like that. I feel like that's very subconscious, and it could be from something else, but I feel like 9 times out of 10, it's usually pretty spot on with what it is. Yeah. It's kind of like, should I get off at this exit? And then you do, and you find out there's like a traffic jam, and you're like, oh, I'm glad I listened to myself. Or you don't listen and you get stuck in that traffic jam, and you're like, I should have listened to the whisper. Yeah. And I didn't.
Yeah. The intuition, I feel like a lot of, I guess just like systemic stuff kind of deconditions people to use their intuition and to let their intuition speak. At least that's how I felt a lot of the time, you know, in my experience with school. Yeah. You know, it's like, oh, don't worry about your intuition. You know, I don't, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, forget about that. Yeah, memorize this.
Exactly. It's like, just memorize this thing. You know, here's a bunch of useless information.
Right.
I mean, again, exactly.
No, I mean, I went to an art high school. Thank God. Yeah. But even still, at a young age, it was like I innately knew, I'm like, this is, and people may not completely agree with it, the cool ones will, indoctrination in a lot of ways. Yeah. Whether it's intentional or not, whether people are aware that they're doing it or not, but it's very narrow-minded thinking. And obviously certain schools are a little different, and a little more out there, and a little more just depending on where you go, but it's all kind of textbook for the most part, and it kind of keeps you from using your creativity and your intuition. You're right. It kind of stops you from using your intuition, and that's such a powerful thing. It's a superpower. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people in our generation, how old are you?
I'm 23.
I'm a baby. But I'm 29, so we're still in our 20s. Yeah. We're like still floating. But both of our generations, I feel like a lot of people are remembering, like, wait a second, there is a compass within me that can guide me. No one else is above me. No one's God. Doctors aren't God. Even God is like,
even God is with us. Like, people.
That's exactly. We are all, it sounds so cheesy, but we're all one, and we're all on the same level. And that's where I think the issues arise, is when we think someone or something is above us, and then we let go of our own intuition and our own trust in ourselves because we think somebody else knows better. And how could somebody else know better to guide us than us?
That's true. Yeah. I have that happen a lot. I mean, in like music, everyone's like, hey, you should do this. Like, I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. I'm me. And I feel like that's also like where competition goes to die is when we all are our full fucking human selves and we're tapping into our spiritual selves and we're using all the tools we have to be as unique to ourselves and as true to ourselves as possible. And that's where the magic lies. And that's where the competition ceases to exist because everybody is people are going to get what they need from us if we're in our full self.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're trying to get back to our true form, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of us.
I think about that a lot. We're, strictly on when it comes to like thinking of people on different levels, like, oh, this person's above me, this person's below me, and then that's like a competitive mindset. But what does that do besides like hurt people?
It hurts people. It creates fear. It creates jealousy, a lot of energies and frequencies that aren't conducive to flowing in flow state or flowing with God or source moving through you. It's a block. And it like it really kind of puts a pause button on a lot of things. It's like you're trying to compete with this person, but for all you know, you guys working together and talking to each other is going to blossom and create this whole other avenue that you could have never imagined or thought up. People just freaking learned how to control their ego because we need the ego to get stuff done. But
a healthy ego.
That's the one that I don't like it when people say kill the ego. I don't think that's not conducive. Yeah. But definitely controlling that bad boy.
Ties all the way back. It ties back into balance.
Yes, it is. It's all about balance.
Need some ego.
Yeah, you do. Nothing's good or bad unless you have too much of it.
The right amount of ego is confidence.
Yes.
Rather than, being overly confident. What's the word? There was a word that I was going to use, but it was just like, this overinflated.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay.
Then they're like trying to convince themselves that they are who they say they are. And then it loses its, you kind of ignore people who do that, I feel like. And then you miss out on their actual talents because you're so just like, I don't even want to listen to you, man. Like you're just, it's too much right now.
Yeah, sometimes I have interactions with people and they're saying something like trying to convince me of something. It's like, are you trying to convince me or yourself of what you're saying,
Yes, and then there's like the disconnect within that too, because then they're not in the moment and in the conversation with you because they're trying to convince themselves and you and then the magic isn't there and you're not flowing through source because your human's kind of getting in the way of that.
Yeah, that is true. that is one of the saying I had to work through that maybe like a year ago where it's like getting in my own way. It's sometimes you get in your own way. And I mean, and it's not to say I don't get in my own way every once in a while still, I feel like the idea of healing is like, oh, once I'm healed forever. No, not necessarily. It's like you're going to get little lessons here and there.
Exactly. I almost see it as healing is just becoming aware and learning and remembering.
Yeah.
And if you look at it that way, then you're not constantly in this victim stance of like you're an open wound.
Yeah.
You're just learning. This is like the school of life. But obviously processing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I like the open wound metaphor because there's so many angles you can kind of approach it at. Because it's like, sometimes people are like, hey, look at my open wound that I'm not doing anything about. Or it's like, oh, all I am is my open wound.
Yes, I'm continuously just gluing it back together instead of stitching it and like taking care of the wound. And there may be a scar there, but that's just, again, a reminder. And you move through it.
Yeah.
I'm in the spiritual community for sure. And I see that happen a lot where a lot of a lot of circles or gatherings or retreats are kind of like based around healing. And it's almost to an extent that everybody's in this victim state to where they have journal prompts that are like not very great and they're kind of dark a little bit.
Interesting.
But
Like,
on
do you
the
have an
opposite end of
example, or
that,
is it, like, just a,
I mean,
for reference?
I guess, I mean, yes, absolutely talk about things that you've processed that are heavy and dark, but also shed light on the good instead of constantly going towards like fear. Like, what does fear feel like in your body? What are you afraid of? And kind of combat it with the opposite instead of adding more energy to it. Yeah, exactly. And then I see a lot of spiritual narcissism feeding off of people who are like, heal me, heal me, heal me. But like, no one's a healer unless they're like moving through it themselves. And like, only you can really do the healing of yourself. Everyone else is just providing a container for you to get an okay. Like, all we really should be doing for each other is planting seeds and giving each other permission slips to be in that vulnerable space to process things. So it kind of just irks me when somebody calls themselves a healer. I'm like, you're creating space.
Yeah.
We are all one. And then when you call yourself a healer, it kind of makes that person see you as an entity above them. And then that kind of just starts a whole other pattern of issues like, within that you're going to have to break.
And now you're back at the hierarchy again.
Exactly. You say you hate religion, but look what you're doing right now.
Well, it's cool that you mentioned that because, you know, Jesus did the same thing. And look what people did to Jesus is like put him on this pedestal.
And he's like, no, I don't want this.
Yeah, exactly. And I, you know, I could only guess, but I wouldn't think Jesus would be happy with the way that, you know, his name has been taken.
He's probably like, shit. He's like, I literally came down here and was like, I'm in you, you're in me.
Exactly.
We are all one. We are all on the same level. You can do what I'm doing. We can like just... It's so interesting. I was talking to my roommate the other day, and I picked up the Bible. I haven't picked up the Bible in a while, but I saw that I wrote down Bible verses in a journal like a while ago. And I was like, I'm just going to look these up. And they were all Jesus speaking. And he was talking about how if you believe that I came from God and that I am the Son of God, like, then you believe that you are children. We are all one and we are all here together. And basically saying like, you will be in the kingdom of heaven. And I feel like people have misconstrued that. Like, if you don't believe, you're going to go to hell. But that's not what he was saying. He's saying, if you can see God working through me and you understand this, you're going to be on this frequency with us. And it's a frequency. It's not a place. It's a state of mind. And it had nothing to do, God doesn't have an ego. Like, it's not like he needs to be praised or anything because God is God. It's just humans used it for their own reasoning, whether it was money or power or whatever. And then people hate Jesus, but it's like, no, Jesus was like actually one of the greatest humans that ever walked this earth to show unconditional love. And people just completely took it the incorrect way. And he's like, I'm literally like laying it out here for you. I'm saying all these things and you're misconstruing it. Like, it's a state of mind. Like, it's
that
just like
in the Bible too.
It's like literally there. And it's
so
even
funny.
been like, it's so interesting. And like, obviously things have been like removed, put in, whatever. But I still believe there is some form of divine protection on the Bible in a certain way. I still think there's still a lot of truth within that. And yeah, it hit and I was like, dang, we really just fucked that up. But it's like, it's a frequency. And it was just like, well, if you don't believe, like, it just means you're not there yet because you don't see it. That's all. It's not because you need to it's not because you need to praise me. But so. Yeah.
Let's see. There were a couple of great things that kind of sparked in my brain.
Yeah.
There was, the thing that is crazy to me is whenever there's like people talking about, there's always like the witchcraft discourse, especially from Christians. And it's like, I love Jesus. Christians don't always. I don't always vibe with Christians.
That's
you know?
interesting. Yeah.
I don't always vibe with institution. You know, I
what
understand
it
someone who
is.
likes to
Yep.
read the Bible. That's totally fine. And,
Yeah.
and if they read and actually understand the Bible as it is,
Yeah.
they'll actually be nice, tolerant people. You know, but institution corrupts that.
It's like a safety net, and it's a way for themselves to feel like they're in control as well.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a Christian household, but I didn't even like saying that growing up because I knew what was behind it. And then I went to an art school where everyone was like, "Ah," when it came to that. But it was like Christianity, but like even my dad, that's just what I called it. But my dad was like, no, I just want to be as Jesus was. It's not like a religion. It's not, he's like, we are the church.
That's the point.
Yeah, we are the church. We
supposed to be
are,
like Jesus.
and that's like that's who my dad is. And he's really paved the way for me to understanding that and spirituality and what Jesus actually stood for. Like my dad, I had so many gay friends growing up and they all had crushes on my dad. And my dad loved it. He loved it. He is the least judgmental person I've ever met because he's actually walking the way Jesus would.
Yeah.
Jesus loves everybody. He's walking unconditional love. He has no hate in his heart.
Jesus loved the gays.
Jesus loves the gays.
He loves the gays. Yeah, that's right.
Jesus loves the gays.
Yeah, present tense and past tense.
Jesus loves everybody.
That's right.
But this Jesus that has been just completely manipulated by the church in so many ways, that's hate, and that's humans that did that. That wasn't Jesus.
Yeah. That's a great point. You want to top up on tea?
Yeah.
Is
Also, look at my phone case.
that Jesus on the phone?
It's Jesus on the phone case. It's Jesus DJing. Jesus in the house.
Jesus in the house.
But the real one.
The real Jesus.
The real Jesus.
That's funny.
Jesus DJing.
That's right. We were talking about Jesus DJing.
That set would slap. Be heavenly.
I've seen. I browse TikTok every once in a while, and I got a mild addiction, as most TikTok users do.
It happens.
But yeah, I've seen there's like a joke where people will AI generate images of people doing something funny,
Yeah.
right? I think I saw one of like U.S. presidents doing a DJ set.
Love that.
That'd be pretty funny to do like an AI generated Jesus DJ set. Yeah.
What would he play?
I don't know.
I
Just
don't
like,
know.
Oh yeah, what was music like in the time of Jesus? That's a good question.
It would be a lot of like, I feel like just like, plucking drums?
Yeah.
Drums, maybe? Drums?
Yeah. I guess
Oh,
that's
drum
something
and
I had to do
bass?
some research on. Yeah, Jesus would like drum and bass. That's funny.
Look, I feel like maybe like liquid drum and bass just to give it that like
I can see
flow. Yeah.
Flow
He's
like
a hype
water.
man, I feel like. Yeah. A little water element.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Cool. I think there was that's right. I wrote it down. I think you were talking about seeing and believing.
I literally have never heard that before.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think it showed up on the recording, but there was like that.
Why
That
is it
beep is
doing
back again.
Please state your command. Maybe that was her signing off. She signed off.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I've been in the middle of changing a thought pattern in my brain. Is like, I'll see it when I believe it. Versus, I think I said it backwards, but I said it backwards. But
I'll believe
right.
it when I see it.
Yeah, it's like I'll believe it when I see it. But the way you want to have it is, I'll see it when I believe it. You know, and that's
because then you're not surrendering. You gotta have that surrender. You gotta have that like moment of uncomfortability and just like breathe through that.
Yeah.
And then you'll get used to just being like, everything's going to be okay no matter what, especially when I'm living my life with integrity and going along the course of purpose that I like feel like my highest version of myself would want.
Yeah, that's
And if not, you kind of get nudged, and that's when shitty things happen. It's to nudge you where you're supposed to be, and that's why nothing's good or bad, because those shitty things are pushing you towards the good.
that's true. Yeah.
Oh.
Is
So feel excited when you feel uncomfortable. You're like, all right, where are you nudging me to, world?
True. Yeah. Because sometimes it's like, oh, I really don't like this thing. Because sometimes if it's like something shitty happens and then you want to fixate on the shitty thing.
Yeah. And then you're creating that energy inside of you, and then you're like reliving it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, shit, manifestation is you're like manifesting something terrible happening over and over again just because you're in that frequency. So it attracts that. But if you're like constantly thinking of best case scenario and feeling that best case scenario in your body, then you're at that frequency for those things to actually enter and be attracted to you. So it's interesting. I felt a lot of guilt for a while, I guess, around daydreaming, you know, and like, no, that's because I feel like as kids, especially in school, it's like, get your head out of the clouds.
Yeah.
Stop daydreaming. But that's like where the magic lies, is like letting yourself feel the best case scenario.
True.
And like tapping into that like lucid daydream, like intentionally daydreaming to create the reality you want and the reality of your highest self is those things that you naturally daydream about.
Yeah. That's amazing. I feel like once someone is truly in a space where they can daydream like that and, you know, just dream and vibrate at those frequencies that they want to, things happen that are better than expected.
Always.
You know? And it's like, wow, like I didn't expect to be approached by someone who's going on tour and would like to do shows together. Right. And, you know, it's like,
you put yourself in that space.
I literally wrote it down, you know, like,
dude, isn't that insane how that happens?
And it's like, it's just mind blowing a lot of the time. Or it's
you're like, it was that simple?
Yeah.
You're like, obviously you like worked to get there because you're an incredible artist. But then like once you do the work, you're like, okay, what now? Yeah. And it's like, once you say it out loud or write it down, then source is like, all right, they want this and they're ready for it. So let's go. Yeah.
I think that was a lot of the testing is like, are you ready for this? But it's great that you said integrity too, because that's one of the things I'm trying to do, to have integrity in everything that I do. And I think I've just been tested in terms of integrity when it's just like, okay, will I let myself be surrounded by people I don't want to be surrounded by? And it's like, no. Like having to be able to say no, having to be able to stand up for myself. And like, it's a new thing. It's a new thing, but I think it's paying off.
Oh, absolutely. It's so simple as saying no. And then it's like, oh, now I don't have to get tested in this way anymore because I figured it out. And then you have, again, like this flood of cool people that come in that replace that stagnant energy that was there. And then you get used to doing it. And then it almost like irks you to even be in a space with anybody that you used to feel weird about letting go of.
Yeah.
Because you up your frequency when you do that. And then you really feel there is when you go back at any point. If you do, and you're like, wait, that's why I left.
Then you realize how far you've come.
Yeah. And like you're creating, especially in the music industry, you're creating a very firm base for yourself by living in integrity and by really choosing who you have around you, especially when you're on the up and up of what you're doing. Like you want solid people around you who aren't jealous and aren't competing, but people who actually like fill your cup and want to see you succeed because they see you as a person and they see how special you are. And that's what's going to continue to inspire you as well. And like help you feel safe in those moments, especially when you go on tour, to have those people that are safe. Because there are people who are going to beat down your door because they're like obsessed with you because they see you as a god.
Dude.
And You don't want
crazy.
that.
Yeah.
But it's great. But it's probably going to happen.
Very likely will.
But the person that you are is going to beam the way you do, and it's going to, I think, help balance out that a little bit. So, and the fact that you have this podcast too, and people can get to know you is like
That's true.
pretty important.
Yeah. There was, yeah, it is interesting because the people that you spend your time around, I mean, you see it a lot with a lot of these, 27 Club members is the people they were going up with were not the people they're going to want to,
The darkness.
they let them go into that darkness, and it was just, it's tragic. I think about Amy Winehouse.
That was the first person that popped into my head when you said that.
Yeah. Amy Winehouse, I mean, I think.
Whatever it took to get her on stage.
Yeah.
That's all they cared about.
And yeah, it's so tragic. I watched that documentary, and I mean, and she's not the first, and unfortunately, probably will not be the last. There's so many like pop stars that are just taken advantage of, and the thing that bothers me the most a lot of the time about the music industry is that there are musicians that don't sing their own songs. Like the words coming out of their mouth are not theirs.
Yeah, that sounds
Like,
so well with me.
Yeah. Unless
like
it's a cover, of course. Like that's different, but
But I feel like that gets rid of the magic when you do that.
Yeah.
Because there isn't. I mean, I guess someone could write lyrics and they could say, wow, this resonates with me and I want to sing this. So I guess there is beauty within that, but I know what you're talking about specifically. And it's basically just to pump shit out.
Yeah.
And oh man, and then don't even get me started on frequencies.
Yeah.
How that's been manipulated and shifted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like the 432, 444,
Yeah.
444, 440. I mean, angel number 444, but
Yeah. 444.
444.
This is your sign if you're listening, 444.
Yeah, there you go. I hit 222 on the odometer. Well, not the odometer. I guess since I last got gas, it was 222.2 on the way here. So.
Dude, that's so interesting because that is literally, I'm going to show you this right now. I'm going to blow your mind. First off, 222 is my birthday. And 2222 has been like huge lately. But then when you called me at 6:20 and I was like, oh, Mikey's here. My roommate was like in her work office and she sat down and she's like, dude, look what I saw when I.
That's amazing. That's a really aesthetic image too.
Oh yeah, she's a very aesthetic person. Yeah. But like you called me and she sent me that the moment you called me.
Can we make that the picture for the podcast?
Absolutely. Cool. I'll send it to you right now.
There we go.
Grace is going to love that.
222. Yeah, my understanding of the 222 is like, hey, what you're doing, it's going to work. Just keep at it.
It's alignment, baby.
So, yeah, I'm keeping at it.
Keeping at it. We're doing it. And that's what I've noticed too. When you step into your path and your purpose with the full fuck yes, and like it's ever changing, but like you're on this path, and I don't ever think there's like a full end goal. It's just a continuous energy that you're exuding. Yeah. And then it just turns into impact after that. But like with your shirt and the moth and that being like, I literally am like, they just come to me when I need them to come to me and like show me like you have that. And then like the tattoo just to like solidify it even more. And then like the twos everywhere. Yeah. And then the fact that I was going to wear like basically that exact outfit, but just like cropped is so funny to me.
Yeah. It's just like bringing,
but you have these signs, like these affirmations that come up are insane.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a joke after a while. You just like, of course, but you're like, holy shit, like doesn't even fully hit because you're just like,
oh, yep, another angel number.
Yeah. But then it's like, oh, you want more? Here's this shirt.
Yeah.
Here's this exact time that you called, and here's the number again.
Yeah. There's like the spiritual Avengers. Just an absolutely killer team of people,
Yeah.
working together.
Absolutely.
Because that's the thing, collaboration. That's
Collaboration.
what has made humans strong, you know.
Collaboration. We found each other. Like we're on that. That's what's also really cool is like who you're attracting is what is you being reflected back to yourself. Yeah. And I have some cool fucking people being reflected back to me right now. So I'm like, I'm doing something right. If like I got Mikey sitting across me right now, like fuck yes.
Yeah, it's like, because now the work inside is now showing out outside.
And how like what a gift. Like how cool of a feeling is that? Like it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's like I felt it too. Like when I saw you, there was like you had this aura around you and it was inviting. I usually don't go up to people. I'm like, hey, can I sit across from you? Unless I like feel like they're chill. I mean, granted, I knew you were making music, so I was like, all right, he's chill. But like there was like when I
think I did have my guitar sitting next to me.
You did, yeah. You had like all of your stuff. You had 2 headphones, so I was like, you're making music.
Right, I had 2 headphones.
Yeah. But like you lit up, and I was like, he's my people. And we started talking, and then you're like, you whip out a book about boundaries, and I'm like, fuck yes.
I guess I could shout that out. The Big Book of Boundaries.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's the Big Book of Boundaries. I think it's just called the Book of Boundaries.
It's big for you.
I've been working through that Rick Rubin book. I haven't read it in a little bit.
What did you call it? Or what is it called? The artist way or creative
like
way or something.
Art of creation or something like that.
The art of creation. Yeah, you sent it to me. Yeah. Rick Rubin, if you hear this, I want to be best friends with you.
I'll give you a kiss.
That's for you. I hope it hits you. I hope you feel that.
Rick Rubin on the other side of the earth is like,
April 27th, 8:04. Where were you?
That's funny. But yeah, I guess I haven't been reading a ton of like texts. Like I haven't been doing a lot of reading. I've been doing a lot of doing.
That's good though, because that's how people write books is they do it. At least you're using your mind and your creativity and hell yeah books, but like you got to do stuff.
That's true. Yeah, I have to find that balance because a lot of the time I love movies, I love film, and just like
there's inspiration within that.
Yeah, the art of movies and like cinematic language is really important to me. And I mean that's
the
why
same
I have
way.
weird dreams like that with like the big old babies drinking the alcohol. But just there is something spiritual in that, and I've tried to curate what I watch because what goes in, what comes out, right? So if what you're watching, what you're reading is low quality, what comes out is going to be low quality, and if you want to watch that. And I mean, maybe I get a little too, even with like food and stuff, I'm like, oh, I feel like there's going to be like there's like hormones in this or something, or microplastics and all whatever, just lead in it. I don't know.
It's so true. But then I was talking to my friend about this the other day too. I was like, I feel like I need to stop eating foods that are in cans. I have an obsession with Art of Palms now. I realized how good they are. And I was like stressing myself out about that. And then I'm like, wait, thoughts are what really create your reality and what get your body to actually turn into this fight or flight response. Like I feel like without stress, those toxins in your body can like move through and be released. It's the stress that kind of holds them there, and that's what does the damage. So I feel like if you're just like not really like, don't stress about it. Like obviously try and be as conscious as you can. Like don't freaking eat Fruit Loops every day. But I really think the stress and the thoughts are what kind of trap it there. Just kind of like emotions being trapped in your muscles. So don't stress. Just let it out.
Wiggle it out.
Yeah, it's okay. I can eat hearts of palm sometimes. You can like eat red dye 40 sometimes. We'll be okay.
That's so funny. That's exactly what was like going through my brain. It's like red 40.
Red 40, inflammation.
Yeah, no.
Trader Joe's, they do use seed oils, but they don't use artificial like dyes.
I'm very grateful that I live basically in walking distance to a Trader Joe's.
I love Trader Joe's.
I like Trader Joe's. I like Sprouts. I try to, like I said, I try to make whatever goes in to be as high as quality as possible because what I want to put out is as high as quality, higher quality.
No, absolutely. It's like that
can.
vibration. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah. Don't drink red dye 40.
Don't do it. If you're having any stomach issues, that's probably what it is. Red Gatorade.
Red Gatorade.
Red Gatorade.
The thing that
Hot Cheetos, Takis. That's where people, they forget Takis and Doritos. I was eating Doritos the other day and I'm like, oh, fuck.
that's crazy.
I finished them, but I was like, you don't need this. We don't, do you hear that, suppliers? We don't need the colors.
Yeah.
We don't need the colors. They're being weeded out. Like, if
Yeah.
you see chips that are like terrible for you, they're like $1 now. Like, they're trying to get rid of it. So I'm like, hell yeah, they're trying to get rid of products because people aren't buying it anymore. And we're winning now. Ha, 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 Kellogg's.
The thing that like boggles my mind too is like the need to make something a bright color. Like,
It's like trying to trick people.
Yeah.
It's like this dumbed down way of like thinking. It's like, oh,
we'll
shiny
just dye
thing.
it green so it's healthy.
Yeah, we'll just dye it green. They'll associate it with that. It's kind of like painting your kitchen yellow or something. It helps you like. There's things that certain colors
color
do to the
psychology
brain.
kind of stuff,
yeah.
yeah.
So I feel like they're catering for the kids because the kids are going to see that, and then the parents are like, unless they're slow parenting, which is I've seen that it's not an easy task. But usually it's just like, I'm so tired. Fucking fine. Take it. Man.
Parenting is scary.
It seems scary. I'm glad that I have yet to experience it. I mean, if I do, cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll enjoy it when I get there. But at the moment, I'm chilling.
Yeah.
I'll hang out with my friends' kids.
Yeah. This
I'll get a nice little dose. Kids are healing.
Yeah.
But I can go home.
Yeah, exactly. Just go home and, not have to worry about having brought an entire another being onto this plane.
Yeah. Oh man, could you imagine getting home, showering, and then knowing you had to wash a completely another being, feed another being? Just like, oh man. That's why mothers like forget to eat.
The thing that gets me a lot of the time too is that people have a child and have all this unresolved trauma are effectively
baby.
working on the maturity level of a child or a teenager, and then they have a whole child, and then the child ends up being more mature than them.
That's like on the best case scenario that the child does that. Because I feel like it can go one of two ways, because they're like, they have these patterns that are in them. And I mean, shoot, it starts in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
Like that womb holds energy.
And if it's the energy of stress,
baby. Yeah. And then, you're, that's another reason why I'm like so grateful. Because I have definitely had moments in my life when I was dating someone for long term that I was not careful. Mm-hmm. I've never been on birth control because hormones.
good for you.
Divinely protected.
Yeah.
Divinely protected. God was like, this is not the person, or I'm not going to put you through this. You already have enough trauma with this person. I'm not going to make it last forever. But I'm so thankful that I am able to move through patterns and like generational trauma and see and be aware of myself. So if I do ever have kids, they actually have a chance to be themselves and not a reflection of what I still need to fix.
Yeah. And that's the thing, which can be mind-boggling to me sometimes, where it's just like a parent can have a child and the child is a reflection of themselves, and they don't understand why their child is like misbehaving or doing all like, just the way they are. And it's like, it can't be more obvious. It doesn't get more obvious than that,
And there's like some sort of block there that they don't get.
Denial.
I mean, yeah, I grew up with it, and it was that like reflection back to where, fuck it, I'll say it. My mom's probably never gonna listen to this. I love my mom, love her, God love her. She had a lot of trauma growing up, and that woman is a warrior. Like, she made it out the other side, but she still had these patterns that she didn't work through. And it caused her to kind of like not, her nervous system was not regulated at all. So it was like up and down, up and down, up and down. And my little Pisces Cancer self was like getting shot up and shot back down. And then I was reflecting back to her with my emotions because I just like wanted to please her and make her happy. And then I also was like not only feeling my sadness, but hers. And she thought I was bipolar because she saw the ups and the downs, but it was actually just how she was reflecting back onto me. And like, thank God I can be aware of that now. But like in the moment, it was a really difficult thing, which is like another reason why I really am grateful that I'm able to be aware of that and process it. And I love my mom. Like, she's such a beautiful human in so many ways, but that was like, she moved through as much of that generational trauma from her parents as she could. And she came a long way. Like she really pulled out of there. And now I'm just like finishing it up for her.
Yeah.
And so Mike, if I have kids, they don't got to finish it up for me.
That's where I'm trying to be at too, where it's like, if I'm bringing someone into this world, I want to have created a beautiful life that I can then share with them, you know, rather than be like, I'm suffering, so you have to suffer with me. You know,
it's suffer with you. You're a burden.
Yeah.
I don't ever want my kids to feel like a burden or I resent them in any way.
I had quite a similar dynamic with my mother too. So I'm sure that's another one of the reasons that, you know, we've crossed paths, you know, it's like similar healing.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so.
Why we're understanding. It's like, it's that depth of understanding that like I would not take it back. And because of who we are, we were able to come out the other side. But I also see people who took the victim stance. And then it was like, fuck you, woe is me. And they couldn't step outside of that enough to see that like our parents did the best they could with what they knew. And they weren't intentionally trying to be a certain way to us. They didn't actually hate us. It just came off that way because they really like didn't have anywhere else to go because their body was so dysregulated and they didn't have the same awareness that we do now. So yeah, I think you having this podcast is a great way because I think a lot of people will resonate and maybe it'll snap some people out of that victim stance and be able to be like, oh, my parents are human. Yeah. And they have their own shit. Yeah. Not to say we agree with it, but like it's our responsibility to transmute it. Yeah. Or else we're going to suffer and then we're going to perpetuate that suffering and we're going to bleed on other people and our lives will not be great. No one else is going to save us but ourselves. But there are people will show up along the way when we choose ourselves and do those right things to help us. Yeah, that's the thing too. And I feel like with my parents is like I chose myself because I don't know how even I'd phrase it, but yeah, I chose myself because at least the dynamic continuing as it was would not have been able to sustain for very long, you know. Absolutely, it's a painful place to sit in. Yeah, it is one of those things too. My partner and I talk about it too, where it's just like, that was the best they could have done. and you know, that was the best. It was, you know, and yeah, and but yeah, they're human. Everyone's human, and it is 100% within your right to decide whether you want to give your time, your energy, your space to a person or not. I think with all these things said, absolutely. You know. Absolutely. Because again, it's like if you're not in a place for things to hit, it's like if you can bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. Yeah. And sometimes it takes that horse being just completely parched, almost falling over, almost passing out to finally drink that water. But sometimes that's what it takes. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of a headache. Yeah. And sometimes it just takes like, I'm a mouth this kind of guy. I guess I'll drink it. So sometimes everybody has different die of dehydration and scorn you the entire time. Exactly. And we just have to let them go through their process. Yeah. So I was like, we plant seeds. We don't sit and try and fix. Because I've definitely tried to do that, and it was to the detriment of my own health. But I needed to learn that, and I needed to move through that. And now I plant seeds.
Yeah, it's about identifying whether actually trying to go through that whole cycle of healing is worth it. Because a lot of the time now I'm just like, you got to meet me where I am,
Yeah.
you know? And if you are making an effort to meet me where I am,
You'll be there.
I'll meet you in the middle, you know? But it's like, if you are just going to stay there
Yeah.
and you want me to come down in vibration, and I mean,
It's not going to
to do
happen.
the hierarchy
Yeah.
thing, but, you know.
But that's energetically, that's absolutely exactly what's happening.
Yeah, it's
because
like if
it's
you're
a heavier place. You're closer to the ground. It's heavier.
Yeah, that's just interesting.
It's super interesting.
I think about my childhood home a lot of the time. You know, I mean, kind of going back in the just in this hour, and it's just a whole. I don't know. I think a lot of the time about this interview with David Bowie, where someone asked him, it's like, you know, what's the relationship with your parents like? He's like, I haven't really talked to him in a while. You know, it's like, I don't really talk to my mother. I think she's still living in her flat or something. You know, it's like, yeah, it's just interesting because I think you were saying earlier, I think a lot of people have a decent dynamic with their parents and their family, but there are people out there who haven't and have a significant history of cycles of trauma and, you know, the
that needs to be
generational trauma.
broken.
And yeah, exactly.
And it's a whole other like process and step. But I feel like the most beautiful, significant, profound things come out of those types of people.
Yeah.
It's that depth. It's that depth.
And I want those people to be seen.
And
And that's why this podcast is here.
And we love you for this.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing to end it on.
I think I love you.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, to those listening, I love you.
I love you.
Let's get some.
You are seen, you are heard.
Exactly.
You are worthy.
Healing frequencies.
Yes. That's what healing frequencies sound like.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
And thank you to the listeners as well.